Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to Money Markets and Motivation with Mike. 4 noon is our word of the day, the morning. So there you have it. Our word of the day is 4 noon. We'll have our quote of the day at the end of the show. So let us go over to actually the S&P heat map first. I thought this had bounced back earlier. Just going to try to refresh this. I guess this is how we closed. Doesn't really want to refresh, but Microsoft is down a little bit. Here we finally refresh. Yeah, I thought that this was more like it. Microsoft is up 1.4. Apple continues to move up. All the semiconductors are bouncing. Financials look good. We had like a 2-day rotation into small caps, but it may have ended. Energy continues to do well. So that is our story. Let us go over to the crypto. Crypto has pulled back pretty strong. This was at 4,700, and this was at, I think, 124,000. And every time it gets above 120, they do not let it break out. So it's a pretty interesting. We'll see if that continues or if eventually it'll just break through that resistance. So that is the story there. I'm going to stop the share for a moment. As things really peak, you might want to look at protecting a part of your portfolio. I'm going to see why this screen doesn't want to come up. We'll try to share it again. Here we go. Might want to think about putting at least a portion of your portfolio in one of these accounts. It goes up when the market goes up, and it does not go down when the market goes down. People talk about cost, but cost of losing 54%, like in 2008, is a much bigger cost. And it beats index investing by 5% per year. If you'd like to learn more about this, please let me know. I believe there is bonuses of 13% available at the moment, and that is not too bad of a thing to have. We're going to go look at our screens now. So this is NVIDIA. It's bouncing off of the 10-day moving average. As you can see, this is still on a pretty strong power trend. This would, right, that day would have been a perfect day to buy, as it has been in this power trend ever since. It's been riding the 10-week moving average. So that is NVIDIA. And look at Broadcom. Broadcom very similarly. It popped up here. They went into a power trend at that point. They have bounced off the 20-day here, but they haven't gone below the 20-day. Let's take a look at the indexes. So interesting, the NASDAQ is pulling back a little bit. Would me too bad if it just kind of paused here for a little bit. So let's move on over to the equal weight. Equal weight is pulling back as well. Pulling back to, had a pretty nice move a couple of days ago, and now it is pulling back to the 50-day moving average. Here is the S&P 500. It's at the top of its pivot zone. It's pulling back just ever so slightly today. Look at the equal weight in the S&P 500. It's pulling back kind of the same percentage amount as the S&P. Small caps, after their big bounce, they're pulling back a little bit, about 0.5%. And the Dow Jones tried to get into the pivot and is pulled back to pretty flat for the day. Take a look at our financials. Financials look like they moved higher and pulled back. Take a look at Wells Fargo. And they're pulling back a little bit. JP Morgan. ABWB. Got a strong pullback here, almost 2%. Let's take a look at the VIX. The VIX got a little bit of a bounce today. Tried to bounce yesterday and then pulled back. It's up 3.9%. Let's take a look at the 10-year Treasury. Wow. We got a 2 days in a row, pretty strong move, up to 4.33% interest. 20-year Treasury got a gap up, moves above the 50-day moving average. It's up 1.36%. Communications keeps moving on up. Energy kind of bounced and then turned to flat for the day. Pretty interesting. Utilities bounce off of their 20-day moving average. Talon Energy was one of the big ones here. They're just kind of consolidating around the 10-day moving average. Real estate popped, sold off a little bit yesterday and popped again today. It's up 0.66%. Biotech got a nice move, continuation. So this is really broken out over here. Look at this good volume. Let's take a look at the other biotech. It's kind of confirming. It's definitely a breakout over there, up 1.24%. Infrastructure's pulling back to the 10-day. Technology pulls back to the 10-day as well. Software actually got a bounce today, up 0.71%. Take a look at our semiconductors. Pull back to the 10-day moving average. I don't really believe that FinViz heat map, I think it was off a little bit. Jets, airline continue moving towards that pivot zone. Industrials pulling back. Wow, look at the gap up in healthcare today. That is simply amazing, up 1.68%. So all these negative sub-indexes, this is where the rotation is happening today. Got a nice shine in consumer staples at 0.16. Pretty flat in the building materials. Metals and mining holding right above the profit zone. The big pop in home builders pulled back a little bit, tried to move higher today, and then sold off. And finally, here is uranium bouncing off of the 50-day moving average on this slight pullback. Now we're going to see where the big money is flowing. First, let's take a look at Spotify. Spotify got a nice gap up over here. Working on the right side of its base, up 4.91%. Got some pretty good volume here. It is not in a power trend, but who knows, one could develop. American sports got a nice move today, up 2%, working on the right side of a flat base, I guess you could call it. And in biotech, got a nice move in Insulet. Volume was kind of lacking, but they had 113% earnings increase over here. Big volume over here got above the 50-day. So just kind of see if it gets to 329.43. That would be the buy point. Let's go see where the big money was flowing. Got a gap up and kind of closed in the middle of the price range, up 9.73 on HSAI Group, China-based manufacturer, I guess, of LiDAR solutions. Their earnings are supposed to be up 2,212% this year and up 115% next year. That's quite a jump. Coherent is trying to bounce back from its big gap down on earnings. Continue to watch that. SoftBank Group, gap up 6.46%, 2 days of increasing volume on that one. Their earnings came in at 363% above previous quarter. SolarEdge got a nice move today, up 17%. It's like a couple of days past their earnings, so that's pretty surprising. Sounds like there might be some news out there. Tapestry. It had a big gap down on our earnings, trying to fight back to get to the profit zone of 5.28%. Acadia Pharmaceuticals bounces into the pivot zone, up 3.26%. Pretty good volume here and here. And it looks like it's in a power trend. The 10-day is above the 20 is above the 50, and the 50 is above the 200. Mirum Pharmaceuticals, that is pretty well extended. But if you're in it, that's a nice profit zone. And I suppose you could try an add-on right here. This is breaking out of this channel. This, I guess you would call that a ledge. Mitsubishi gaps up. So two Japanese stocks gap up today, up 3.66%. JFrog IPO, I believe this is 2020 IPO, bounces into the pivot zone of 5.57%. Pretty good volume on their earnings. Had a couple of days sold off, but got some pretty good volume again today. Syndax Pharmaceuticals. I guess if you went over to the base right over to here, it's not quite out of that base, but if you drew the line from 1424, yesterday would have been the breakout. Trying to bring up my handheld, see if there's anything else interesting. Regal Pharmaceuticals up 4.28%. It's pretty well extended. Looks like it's up 56% from the pivot. Sensient Technologies up 2.34%. Credit Corp Lending Tree gets into the pivot zone. Oh, look at that massive base. That is pretty long. It looks like right over here, even on this down day here, it looks like it crossed into the power trend. 10-day is above the 20, 20 is above the 50, but the 200 is right here in the middle, so it's not quite the power trend, but you might want to keep your eyes on that one. This is Next Tracker. The solar area up 12.21% today. Huge volume. Arrowhead Pharmaceuticals, once again in the health and biotech area, up 9.21%. Here is one that keeps bringing into this zone. Had a little bit of a sell-off. It's up 0.87% today. This is SSR Mining, up 4.35%. Canadian company that is in the mining area. And finally, I think this is Lumentum. Yeah, Lumentum Holding bounces off the 10-day moving average up a little over 1%. So that is where the story goes today. That is our chart analysis. Now we're going to go over to our financial quote of the day. This comes from Warren Buffett, one of the greatest trader or investors in our history. And I think this is his rule number 5. If you don't find a way to make money while you sleep, you will work until you die. So that is our quote of the day. Hope everybody had a great week. Kind of go out there and see if you can pull somebody up in need. Enjoy your weekend. And we'll see if we have a weekend update this weekend. And in the meantime, be well, treat everybody with dignity, and we'll catch you later.